Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. It is time to talk about X-Wing miniatures by Fantasy Flight Games once more. Trying a little lower key on that so I don't at least sound like I'm blowing out everybody's ears quite so much. Usually I normalize that down, but I know that I can get a little loud sometimes, so we're gonna work on that. We're gonna make that short. So anyway, here's a video I said I'd do last week. I said it in the TIE Silencer video, talking about time to do a little old guesswork about what's gonna be in Wave 14, assuming it's actually called 14. I mean, they announced it, and they still referred to it separately as Waves 12 and 13, so I think it'll be numbered 14. That seems accurate. But, that'll be a thing. We'll see, I guess. So I did a poll. I did this actually a couple of times. I did one for Wave 11, which was mostly wrong. Some people called the H6, you know, the Havoc. That was, I think, a decent guess. The other kind of ships were a little out of left field. I'd heard some rumors about the Ozatuk before, but they were between true and semi-true, and some were abjectly false. So it, you know, a squishy zone. They also said some other bullshit which has not come true, so yeah. But anyway, that's a different matter anyway. So my Wave 11, that was just like a small informal poll. That was before I was even seriously doing X-Wing videos on my channel. So I didn't do a video about that. I did a video about the Wave 12, which I shared a couple places. It wasn't as big as my Wave 14 poll. And obviously I didn't do one for Wave 13 because it was, like, announced immediately after 12. But, my Wave 12... Sorry, I had to think about my numbers there. My Wave 12 poll was actually pretty good. There's a video on that. You can go see it on my channel. I'm not going to link to it specifically, but it's back there. And it covered a lot. Some people were right, you know. Obviously, if you guess enough, eventually you'll be right, probably. But it was decently accurate. Also, a large number of people guessed the Resistance Bomber, which was in 13, so that's pretty close, too. But here we are. I threw this out there. Kind of my methodology for how I made this poll and how I made these polls is kind of to try and make like 3 options for each faction as kind of like a routine pick and set it up so people can pick multiple ones, obviously. But the intent is to basically give each faction at least one option for a ship. I know that Wave 13 kind of threw that off, but that's kind of a weird wave, and obviously there hasn't yet been a direct movie tie-in ship with Scum, which is why Scum lags behind in a number of ships and will eternally lag behind in ships, I guess. Because FFG doesn't seem to want to release enough ships to put them out. Not that I can blame them. People would really complain because people always complain about Scum ships for some god-awful reason. Anyway, here we are. It's time to talk about Wave 14. But as I was saying, so there's 3 guesses in each faction. In this case, there's 1 multi-faction guess because that's a big question mark for me. And I'll explain that when we get way down there and talk about it. I think we got a decent sample size on guesswork here. This is so far my largest. You can go back and compare the screen cap on the last one, but here we are at Wave 14 with, at the time I took the screen cap, over 1,000 votes. So obviously, no, I did not just go to the channel, because my Silencer video does not have 1,000 views, it has like 100. But I shared it around some places like the subreddit. God knows, I might post the video to the subreddit. That'll be fun, introducing a subreddit to my videos. If I did, hi guys. Anyway, let's start at the top. And basically what we're going to do here is I'm going to kind of talk about how these results shaped out for each ship. Also kind of my reasoning for why I put them on the poll in the first place. But in general, if you're like, well, why did these ships get on here? This is because I'm trying to future predict in, like, reasonable guesses, basically. Trying to give reasonable options. Like, there's a whole bunch of ships I'd love to see in there. But I really cannot, I think, in good conscience, guess they will be likely. Like, had you asked me before Wave 11 came out, and I did ask, the TIE Aggressor was not on that list anywhere, because that was a completely out of left field. Like, if you asked me, okay, how do we get Imperials the turret slot, the TIE Aggressor is the obvious answer, but I would never have called Wave 11 specifically as, alright, this will be the wave we do that, right? There's some other variances like that, I think, that are important, because you cannot predict them. So, some of the more obscure Legends stuff out there, that even if I'd like to see it, is still such a big question mark, that I'm leaving off the... and last time I actually left the RZ-2 and the First Order TIE Bomber off my Wave 12 poll because I was like, okay, those are definitely the movie tie-in ships that'll be announced later, so there's no point. They're going to be there. Turns out I was wrong. The movie tie-in ships were, 1, going to be counted as a separate wave, kind of, but also were the Resistance Bomber and the TIE Silencer. Looking at those 2 ships, I actually agree with that choice. That's a lot better because we got a lot of technical information about the Silencer, and we got a little bit about the Bomber. Like, we got an actual name out of it. But at the same time, The bomber works kind of okay with the Crimson Hoobloo and Cobalt Leader kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? It kind of works. Those people may or may not be on screen or may or may not have names. They definitely don't have names now. But theoretically, they could be people in the movie. But at the same time, it's no big spoiler to deal with that. And like I said, the TIE Silencer was a good pick because we got some of that technical information on it, sort of thing. And also, it's basically another TIE Advance situation. It's probably only going to be shown being flown by Kylo Ren in the film, like ever. We might get more appearances in like backstory stuff, and obviously it's, you know, like a featured thing in video games, but let's be real, it's not going to be much bigger, so just making up some test pilot type stuff makes sense. But instead of having to do an Aces pack right away for the A-Wing, and we've basically heard nothing about the FO bomber, we haven't even seen it on film, we just are pretty sure it's a thing because it keeps showing up in promo images, and there are some concept arts that have been published about it. But those are on the list, and that's a good place to start, now that we're over 5 minutes in. Let's start at the top. You guys have been staring at this for like 5 minutes, it's time for me to talk about it. So, at the top, most likely, I know some of my viewers have said that they're not for it, but people are consistently guessing, with nearly 30% of the slice here, that the RZ-2 A-Wing will be in for Rebels. It makes sense. We've just, with crossfire formation, we've just increased the demand for Resistance ships. We know it is a separate model. I talked about it a little in a separate video. You can go look that up on my channel somewhere else. I could card all these videos I'm mentioning in, but I figure if you actually care about it, you can, you know, just click on me and you'll find it. There'll be a link to the X-Wing playlist in the end card for this video. But anyway, I've talked a little about what that would mean. I think it would work out okay. Maybe a couple more green moves. You know, add some sloops. I think sloops make sense for the A-Wing. You could also do Talon Roll. Maybe you could add Talon Roll and sloops, but that seems a little excessive. Give it like +1 shield. It's got plenty of upgrade room for the tech slot, which you could probably do some fun stuff with, you know. Because A-Wing test pilot will still work for them unless it's eroded to not, somehow. That will mean that Resistance A-Wings can get double EPTs, which will be great. You can do juke and comm relay to give them that, like, what people call pseudo-regen effect, you know, blocking hits. Maybe they'll do something like a bullseye arc or something that'll make them more useful with only 2 attack, or maybe just there will be other upgrades in there that'll do it. Also, phrased as RZ-2 A-Wing, it allows a pack to do the integrated astromech question and, you know, offer a buff to original classic A-Wings in the pack. Other than that, there's not really a lot to talk about this. This is definitely a shoe-in as a release in some form. It is definitely coming. It is a ship we know about. We've seen it. There's going to be pilots for it. The problem is, I think, who all will be piloting it, and it'll be up to FFG to kind of make it happen, you know? To pick the right pilots. That'll probably wait until the next wave after the movie comes out. First Order TIE Bomber is also another popular one with a whopping 20% of the vote. This one, I don't know. I'm not enthused about it, probably because, wow, I'd love if the concept art was true. If you haven't seen it, this is the thumbnail for my video speculating about the First Order TIE Bomber, also on this channel. There's a concept art which basically looks like to the TIE Striker what the Punisher is to the TIE Bomber. You know, it's got extra hulls, it's got a ball turret on top. That would actually be a pretty cool design. I don't think that's the design they're going to use, because they have no ambition, and they don't understand how ship designs work, and are cool. I mean, you'd think that with the way they design stuff like the Mandator 4 and the whatever the hell's going on, the Supremacy, whatever, the Big Dick Star Destroyer, or maybe the Little Dick Star Destroyer, as it might be. You know, you'd figure that the TIE Punisher would be right up their alley, but I mean, that's not how it looks on any of the, like, images that have been used for LEGO, and I think actual promo shots of the movie, like for the AT-ATs and the Mega Calibers. Anyway, sorry, I'm a little exasperated with how we've treated designs and names of new Star Wars. Like, I know it's... Nobody gives a flip. Other than nerds, and nerds would like it if you took it more seriously, guys. I'm sorry. Like, just... You can call it whatever to regular people. They don't care. Only super nerds care. And super nerds think it's really dumb, because Mega Caliber is a nonsense word, and lots of other stuff. But I'm ranting now, and we're going off on a completely different thing. Anyway, the concept art will be a way cooler TIE FO bomber. I don't think that's how it's going to work out. I think we're just going to get, you know, black trim, white panels, +1 shield, sloops, tech slot. Hopefully drop the red turns to just be white. Maybe some more green maneuvers, but that'd be cool, you know. Free up the die a little. I have checked. The TIE Bomber has exactly 1 slot free to keep its EPTs and also get the tech slot, which I think would be really good. The tech slot would actually be very useful for this ship, because think about it. this thing can take long-range scanners, and then it can also take targeting synchronizer. This would mean for very cheap, you could, well, presumably very cheap anyway, you could have these ships as proper spotters for the Empire. You could really do some stuff with that. I think sloops is also good because the tech slot would mean that you could do what currently Scum can only do in certain configurations, the sloop and poop, where the Jump Master can either with rigged cargo shoot or with Cad Bane crew can equip a single bomb in that case, and they can do a white sloop and then drop a bomb out the butt. So TIE bombers could do that too with something like Pattern Analyzer. That would allow you to take like a red sloop too, and then drop a bomb. And you've still got extra munitions available, so you could do a couple bombs. Other than that, I don't think there's going to be much more changes. I know that's going to make people sad that it's not going to get like double bombs to take like bomblet or something. But I don't think that makes sense. That doesn't, for just the way they've already designed the TIE bomber, it doesn't make sense. But I think those mechanical improvements could work. Now, number 3, that's kind of a joke going back there to my last poll, is some ship from Star Wars Galaxies nobody remembers has the Major Scum pick. 17%, solid chunk. It's the clear third place frontrunner before even all the other options. I did this basically because I don't want to break out, probably the most likely are, well, really, it could be any of them. That's the problem. That's why it's just a singular slot. One, yes, it's a reference now, but also just, I could not predict between, say, the Dune Lizard, the Crate, the Ixion, or the Rickerzik. Oh, God, that's such a pain in the ass. I don't even know how to spell that. You know what I want. The Ricky Assault Fighter. Thank you to whoever said that on subreddit. Which I would not be eager for, except that I want to see what the community is going to do it, because nobody, well, not nobody, but lots of people can't be bothered to remember Kimogila. Like, maybe you can quibble about the pronunciation, but remembering how it's spelled, guys, I mean, like, chemo's not that hard with the I, and then it's Gila, like a Gila monster. Nobody ever heard of Gila monster? Anyway, so I can't really predict which scum ship from Galaxies it'll be, but that's a clear front runner, and it's an easy pull from FFG. I don't really know how you'd make too many of them unique at this point, but you could do some ways. There could be some things. The Crate would be interesting because that's basically a Kimogila on steroids. Literally, I'm not joking. That's the actual design. It's clearly the same frame, but upscaled a little. That would probably be a large base, similar upgrades to the Kimogila, but it could possibly either have primary weapon turret or slot a turret upgrade, which could be interesting. I don't think Scum actually... No, wait, they have the Skurg H6. Okay. I was just thinking, does Scum have a lot of ships that it can take turret slots? They have a couple. I don't think they have any large bases that could do that, though. I'm thinking. The answer is no, I don't think so. So that could be a different niche, especially if it keeps the same dial type as the Kimogila. You could also probably do other things. It would definitely have a crew slot. You could maybe fluff it to have 2 crew slots, and Scum could actually get a ship that can carry more than, one person that's not the YV. I shrug. So the Crate is probably the best out of those for diversity purposes. Other ships, I mean, you could do something with the Dune Lizard, like you do with the Seek, because that's a same manufacturer and also similar design, but the Dune Lizard's got more traditional fightery type shape. You could basically make it Seeks, but with Scum Astros, and then you could let them equip, like, cannons, torps, missiles, or something. On top of that, I don't really know what else you could do. I mean, I like the design, I like the aesthetic of the Dune Lizard, so I'd like to see it, but I don't really know what else it would bring. Ixion and Rixzerk could, possibly do other stuff with, like, dials and ship types. We've obviously done this whole, ship frames series that I'm just coming off of, talking about a lot of stuff. I don't know if Scum has a lot of gaps in small fighters. They might. I have to double check my notes, but I'm sure FFG could do something interesting with them if they wanted. That kind of depends, though. And the Galaxy ships are honestly kind of flexible because of the way their upgrade system works. There's multiple ways you could configure them, so there's a little flexibility in how their actual, like, say, in-game upgrades would appear in X-Wing. And we're going to probably blaze through the last couple of these because we've talked on pretty long about everything, and I don't know if it matters, but the TIE Reapers are, starting our runners up, and it's actually in, at least in this image, basically a 3-way tie with, and at 7% with 2 other ships, interestingly enough, each from the other faction. The TIE Reaper was that kind of striker-looking, troop transport that appeared in Rogue One. It also has been used in at least one video game, which is how we know its name. It's got a little bit of punch to it, supposedly. It carries troops. With its kind of, aggressive probably faster design, and certainly it's called TIE, so that could lead to some interesting, possibilities such as being able to take Twin Ion Engine Mark II. It's possible that this could give Imperials a more aggressive crew carrier that is not as expensive as the Upsilon. I said expensive doesn't make any sense, but the Upsilon. So that could be interesting. They could also do other stuff with it, I reckon, but it's a solid cannon design. It looks okay. As the TIE Reaper, it would be a great excuse to pull in maybe some Rogue One Imperial characters, do some stuff like that, work on some other things, figure that out. It could be cool. I like the design. I'd like the aesthetics. I'd be a little upset if it came out and was better than U-Wing's, because you whine so much, but I just look at my U-Wing and I'm like, God, I love this little thing. I wish I had better stuff to do with it. Anyway, moving on. The Mining Guild TIE, that's another cannon ship that I think could be interesting. I think this would be actually its own thing. It would be Mining Guild TIE, because unlike, say, the Rebel TIE Fighter, this is supposed to be actually a modification. It's got the panels cut out, and supposedly that actually makes the ship have worse maneuvers, possibly, but also, and less power, but also, better pilot visibility. So that could be interesting. My current assumption would be to keep the price the same and basically worsen the dial a little. Maybe turn some greens to white, or maybe add some reds in there. But in exchange, they get an illicit slot, so they could, have their own positives and negatives over both Rebel and Imperial ties. It could be a thing. Not super excited about it, but it could be a thing. The N1 Starfighter, I'm actually kind of surprised this one scored quite so low, but I guess people were more thinking about it'll definitely be the RZ2. The N1, we've seen it in use in the Galactic Civil War in the comics, with Princess Leia in it, nonetheless, and even an excuse to put Shara Bey in another ship. It's been featured in the Battlefront 2 campaign, as far as I know. I don't know if that's a spoiler, but it's in there somewhere, as it's a thing that's in it, and I think that actually harkens to the same comic that Princess Leia was flying it in. I don't know, I don't have BF2 yet. I might not get it for some time. I don't know, I'll have to see. I don't really want to give EA a lot of money, but at the same time, I like the supposed aesthetics of the game. But that will require other things from me. Anyway, N1 Starfighter could be a good fit. It's light, it could be kind of like an A-Wing type ship, but it would have, torpedoes and astromechs. It could be maybe more like a Z95, but a slight cost increase to have a little more bonus. It should have barrel roll because spinning is a good trick. Everybody's like, barrel. No, come on, guys. Memes. Barrel roll. Spinning's a good trick. We also know that the people who write Star Wars don't know what barrel roll is. Anyway, it could be an okay ship. I know some people would be like, but it'd be a 2-attack ship, and it would. And if it's not, that would be very upsetting. But, you could still do things. It'll have the Astro, it'll have torpedoes. There are moves that could be made. And you'd probably get Princess Leia as a pilot. That would be pretty cool. Then we move into our slightly lower ranks, as we're probably going to end up rounding this video out for a wrap-up here at our 20-minute mark. And so I put the Cloak Shape as my third scum pick. Because really, thinking about it, once you choose that you're not going to split up and talk about all 4 or 5 or whatever Galaxy's ships you could, because there's also their gunship type design you could talk about. Once we skip out on those, Scum don't have a lot of obvious choices left, and trying to pick which will be most prevalent is hard. The only other thing I could think of was maybe the HH80 whatever the fuck, which I have before explicitly said I don't think is a good pick for the game because it basically brings nothing to the table. The Cloak Shape is a classic EU design. It's been mentioned in canon novels since, though, so it's a canonical ship of some sort. And I think it could be interesting. It's kind of got its own design, and I think it should have basically some kind of title that's similar to Vaxire Railguard, and also the Heavy Seek title kind of built in to let you equip more modifications, possibly at a discount, and also to let you kind of pick your upgrade options a little, because it's not a great fighter, but its advantage was that it was highly modular. So this could be an interesting ship for Scum, especially if it's like a one shield type ship. Or maybe it's a no-shield type ship, but it can, clip on multiple, so you could even possibly give it shield upgrade and then pull. That could actually be interesting. So there are things they could do with it, and people will be happy, but obviously, as you can see, people are not guessing highly of that, so if you guys do turn out to be right, good for you. I'm also kind of surprised the patrol transport's so low on this, with only 3% of 30 of the votes. I talked about this before, Imperials could use a small base ship to hold, a single crewman, other than the TIE shuttle, a dedicated platform, possibly with supportive pilots. that have good choices to do this sort of thing. So the patrol transport, it's been in Clone Wars, it's been featured in Rebels. We have seen through Rebels that it can actually fly in space for some period of time. It's not necessarily just a repulsor transport. Or if it is, we're clearly rewriting the rules on how that works. Because, nobody at Lucasfilm gives a flip anymore. But it's got missiles. It's got, some decent forward cannons. It's got a rear cannon, so it could have an auxiliary arc. It would probably have a missile slot. You could have 1 to 2 crew slots. Some people are saying dumb things like it needs to be the equivalent of the Ozatag, so it needs either a side arc or it needs reinforced. I don't think you need to do any of that. You're thinking too big. Rebels have all kinds of builds, and the patrol transport is not a heavy fighter. The patrol transport is a support ship. It's a tiny crew carrier. I also think that since it's sometimes referred to like a space helo, even though that's not how it works, guys, Jesus, it could possibly be an avenue for a stop, or even better, some of those reverse maneuvers we saw with the quad jumper. You could even interpret it as an Imperial counterpart to the quad jumper in terms of its upgrade types. So you could do things with that, and obviously since it's a Rebels tie-in, it's a great excuse to include some Rebels cards. If not going full-blown Admiral Thrawn, you could pull in, Governor Price, Minister Tua, some other characters who have appeared. You could come up with some new Imperial-only generics. Because God knows, Imperials won't stop yakking about how they don't have as many unique crews as everybody else, even though the crews they got are all really good. But, for comprehensive sake, that would be good to just get that kind of thing in. So, and then also at 3%, with 30 votes exactly, the Comarch transport, aka the Gauntlet transport. In case you didn't know, Gauntlet is, Comarch, I should say, is what, or Comarch? I don't necessarily know what the apostrophe is supposed to indicate here. But that means Gauntlet and Mandoa. So I call it Scum/Rebels/Imperial because, unfortunately, due to the plethora of asset reuse, the Comarch has gotten all over the flippin' place. It's still usable in the sequel trilogy era. It's mentioned in one of whatever their version of Tales from the Cantina is that I think that informant to the First Order actually titles, and she flies a gauntlet, okay? That's how widespread it is. Basically the thing is that the new canon it seems like it's reluctant to invent new ships, and when it does, those new ships often suck. So we just reuse old assets from the Clone Wars because we spent a lot of money on that. And those things are definitely canon, so we don't need to bother. Whatever. I think it's a little lazy, but I'll get over it. Anyway, the Gauntlet's been used by basically everybody. It's going to appear in Armada as a Imperial, an Imperial fighter type with Gar Saxon as one of your uniqueified pilots. So it could easily be Imperial. It is used by Imperial agents and even, officers of a type. It's very clearly a scum ship. It was used both by the Death Watch Mandalorians who were clearly opposed to the Republic, and also I think the CIS. It was used by Maul's Shadow Collective, who were very much opposed to the CIS and Republic because those were secretly the same thing. And I will brook no whining about why Maul isn't available to Imperials. I hope the Truncate Silence doesn't cut out that dramatic pause too badly because it's real. Anyway, the Comarch also has been co-opted. They were directly used a couple of times in the Rebels series. And in fact, Ezra gets a hold of Maul's Night Brother at some point and is able to, fly that around it for the Ghost. The only real concern here, and why it hasn't appeared in X-Wing already, I'm sure, besides just the LFL team saying, hold on, we're still using this, you want to wait a minute, because, we still won't stop using it, is that there's a bit of scale issue. It's about 20% longer, or maybe it would be more accurate to say it's 1.2 times larger than the Ghost. Now, if you put it on an epic peg, if you did a special bundling and put it on the epic peg so it stands taller, it could probably fit comfortably on the base, especially if you didn't make the wings rotate. I know people would want the wings to rotate because they do, flip up vertically. And actually that might help too, give it. It doesn't, I don't know if it rotates 360 like the Fang Fighters do. Anyway, it would still be pretty long, but it's too short, I think, for... And not structurally designed to be on, 2 pegs like a proper epic ship. And it's still too short, I think. It's a good 10 meters shorter than the Gozanti, and significantly shorter than other epic ships. So I don't think it's necessarily fit for epic. technically there were quote-unquote 2 sizes because there were 2 sizes of model, but there's only one official number, so I think it would be a good addition to the game. It would be like an Oxark ship, obviously, with a crew slot. You know, we're talking about more places to put Tail Gunner. There's a lot of ways you can interpret it. There's a lot of titles it could have, for instance, you know, some of which could be Scum or Imperial only. You know, there's a lot of pilots you could do it. Maul could be a pilot, in addition to the fact that he's now a crew member. There'd also be all the people who could fly on it who could be pilots. You know, you could bring in some of those old Mandalorian characters, other stuff. I think it's an untapped resource, I should say, and that's a solid choice for an expansion pack. And of course, at the bottom, not surprising, new class shuttle for Rebellion. I threw it on there because Sham Syndulla flew it in Rebels, and it could be an okay pick for Rebels. It's a crew-carrying ship that's not necessarily a system or sub-weapon carrying ship. You could do some funny things with it. There's like images of it out there with like an additional like cargo pod on the bottom, so that could be like an interesting title to start introducing the cargo upgrade to standard, which could be a thing, especially with, say, the Zeta class cargo shuttle. That I'm not ready to call likely just yet. I don't know. I feel like, given that the Upsilon was still earlier this year, I feel like it's not necessarily been enough time to go straight to another shuttle for Imperials, even if, yes, that's mostly what Imperials have for crew carriers. The TIE Scout is also another option, but once again, that's like, how could I predict? How would I know that's coming? So the new class shuttle is just kind of on there. It's a thought I had. I kind of like the design, but also I think, especially because it was in Rebels, we've seen it used in this time period, that could definitely be an interesting pick. You could probably pull some Rebels characters that we don't see, like, you know, you could shoehorn, what's his face, Rebel Agent Callus, I forget what his first name is now, but you could shoehorn him in. You could throw in Sham, obviously, he's been through some stuff. There's no Ahsoka Tano actual, like, crew card yet. She's a pilot for the Rebel TIE Fighter, but she's not a crew card yet, even though she is in Armada, I believe, so that can easily be a thing. You know, there's some other people you could pull in, I think. Depending on whether or not they're actually going to do a U-Wing Aces pack anytime soon, we could get a K2SO pilot card. A crew card. I don't know. I just threw it on there because it's a good option, but obviously, people are not necessarily sure that it's going to be. So if you're part of the 1% there that picked it, and it actually is true, that'll be a whole hell of a thing. So I think we're towards the end there. My recording time is over 30 minutes. I don't know how much of that will truncate down. I don't think I'm going to edit any of it out because it was all important and good knowledge. My longer videos don't necessarily get more views, but hey, we're here. Here we are. And we've come to the end. That's my breakdown of this poll I did about what'll possibly be in Wave 14. And obviously, like I said, outliers are always possible. And they could come out of left field. I can't predict that. This is about predicting likely outcomes, not necessarily being 100% accurate about the outcomes. But if you got one right, go for it. And obviously, if you think you have a pragmatic guess, or even a wish list for whatever will be in Wave 14, which I'm sure will be probably announced in a few months. 12-13 isn't even out yet. We've got a lingering SKU, which is probably an Epic ship or an Aces pack. My guess is the second Scum Epic. That would make sense. But the announcement for that will probably be out in the next couple of months. Actually, let's check. What's our usual lag time for Wave announcements? Let me look this up on the old X-Wing wiki, what I always use to fact check myself. So, for an example, let's see. Wave 10 was released in February, and then Wave 11 was announced in March. Wave 12 was announced in August, and Wave 11 was released in July. So yeah, probably January or February, we should look for a Wave 14 announcement. You know, because Wave 13 was announced relatively soon. It was just in the next month. And all those product codes are earlier, so clearly it was in development earlier. It just wasn't cleared to be announced until later in an odd enough arrangement. But yeah. Oh, and even Wave 10 was announced before Wave 9 came out. And there's some more, I think, indications of like that. There was a little bit of a gap between when Wave 8 was actually announced and when Wave 8 was actually released and when Wave 9 came out, but there's also a delay behind that wave, so who knows. Yeah, so that's just my theory. Next couple of months, because, you know, as of the time I'm recording this, Wave 12-13 hasn't actually come out yet. In most places, I don't think. Anyway, here we are. So, as I was saying, if you've got any thoughts about the actual Wave 14, go ahead and leave those in the comments down below. If you liked this video, please give it a like. That's always useful. And as always, if you have not already, please subscribe to this channel for more videos. It's, you know, wonderful for that. And also, we're coming up on 100 subscribers. We'll probably be doing some special stuff like that, like maybe a special Ask Me Anything episode or some other bonus stuff. If you've got any idea for that, go for it. You know, I know some people subscribe to my channel just for the X-Wing stuff. And of course, we have a community Discord if you want to join in and jump into any conversations there. We got some fun, weird stuff going on there. Like I said, I haven't yet seen anybody from the X-Wing wing of my channel actually in there explicitly. Who knows, you might be in there not just talking. That's okay. We'll be glad to have you. And of course, there's other ways you can support us down in the description below. But that is the end of the video. As always, I would love to thank you for your time and wish everybody